And good morning, everyone. Today we're going to take a look at Adolf Hitler. And this is, having done classes on Hitler before, I've had people who can become really distressed or upset by whatever is being said, because it's often, for many people, they view it as making excuses for Hitler or that sort of thing. No, understand, as an analyst, what's very important is, and it's very difficult, is to try to set aside my judgments about that person and to try to simply take it from the beginning and try to look at how did this person become what they became, and try to do it as dispassionately as possible. And I'm also hoping that you will see as we go through these classes that there are themes that keep emerging and coming up. Not every theme comes up with each character, but there's enough similarities to uh, um, discern, you know, what Hitler did is kind of similar to what so and so did. Um, because as we analyze things, what we want to look at is there a pattern? Is there what we know? We can know the event of today. What happened before? And what happened before, did it initiate a trajectory of events that bring us to the event of today? And why I want to discern that is so that when something similar is happening, I can sort of project it's going to follow this same trajectory. And the reason it is because this is the trajectory that has taken place for thousands of years. It's and to observe all the things that are done for distractions and obfuscations so that people really think that the event that they're experiencing today is unique or unprecedented. It ain't. It's happened before. And yes, ain't is in the dictionary. So Adolf Hitler, he runs for president in 1932 and he loses. But guess what? He declares victory. And so, I don't know, does that sound like anything familiar? What we get is the New York Times announces in a headline Hitler to contest validity of the election. The court dismisses Hitler's suit, observing that Hindenburg had beat Hitler by close to 6 million votes. Just for reference, Biden defeated Trump by 8 million votes. Um, the court upheld the ruling that the disparity was so significant that it would make no sense for a national recounting of the ballots. Hitler nevertheless declared victory, noting that his party had gained 2 million votes at the polls. So, because he had gained 2 million votes, he therefore won, even though the total count was a discrepancy of 6 million votes. And so, where do we begin with Hitler? He's the he's the baby boy of the proud Alois and his mother. Let me make sure I have her name right, Clara. Alois and Clara, mother and father. And he's not the oldest nor the youngest in the family. Um, and so, but his father, Alois, is a civil servant, very angry, bitter man. Remember, we're living in the post-World War One world. Well, actually, he's born before World War One. We're living in that a period of time at the turn of the century where economics are tight, People are a little bit frustrated with things. And so Alois, as is kind of typical of the time, uh, vents his frustrations. He displaces his frustrations on his wife and his children. And so they get beaten a lot. Clara gets beaten a lot in front of the children, which has very severe impacts when a child sees one parent physically assaulting the other parent. Um, and it starts out that Hitler's older brother was the primary target of Alois' venom. And so his brother eventually runs away. And then Adolf has to step into the breach and get beaten up by dad. Vicious beatings, beaten so badly that he eventually gets to a point where his only way to fight back is to not scream, to take it and be quiet, as if to say to his father, "You can't hurt me." And so by the time he's a late teenager, he's considered by many to be psychologically broken. Hitler, however, um, along comes the World War One, and Hitler, although he's an Austrian, wants very much to join in the war. Uh, but the Austrian government military won't take him. So sorry. So he joins the German army. And how Germany got into World War One is a whole complicated thing, but they wind up through alliances, and that they are chafing at the bit to get into a fight with the other European powers, because all of them have been competing with each other in the scramble for Africa to take Africa's resources so that they could use those resources in the Industrial Revolution to fill their coffers. And so they're all angry and ready to fight. And Hitler wants to join in the fight, and he jumps in with the German army. And what happens with Hitler, and is kind of interesting because the same kind of phenomenon takes place with Lee Harvey Oswald, if you remember him from our class on the murder of Kennedy. He finds the camaraderie of the military it's like his new family. It's a new start, and he embraces it. That camaraderie is very important to Hitler. And so he serves as a messenger, and he performs very well, as did Lee Harvey Oswald when he was in the Marines. Really excelled. He wins two Iron Crosses for bravery, running messages across the front lines in World War One. Extremely dangerous. Life expectancy of a messenger is not very long. Hitler does it, and he doesn't resist at all. In fact, when it's like in the middle of the night and they need to send a message, he volunteers. He's quick to volunteer, even though he's been in the war from the beginning, and trench warfare was extremely debilitating. Again, the camaraderie that he has with the List Regiment, this is his family, and that becomes central in his life. At the end of the war, he is a victim of a gas attack, a mustard gas attack. I believe it was mustard gas, could have been chlorine. But and what happens is he's really badly hurt. The gas attack can cause a blindness where the brain can't process what the optical nerve sending. And so he goes into that. He goes into a hospital at Passewalk in Germany. And mind you, at the time, there wasn't a diagnosis for post-traumatic stress disorder. Some would call it shell shock at the time, but clearly Hitler is one who is dealing with that, and he has mental examinations conducted, and finally one of his doctors slaps him around and says, "Get over it," and stand up and be a man. And so Hitler does, and he goes on to become a monster. Of course, impacted by all those other events in his life. And while he's in the hospital, he learns about the armistice, and he's very angry about that. And it's that sense of all of my friends who were killed in this battle died in vain. And that can be almost impossible for someone who has embraced the camaraderie to accept. Accepting the unacceptable was not possible for Adolf. And so it's important to understand that no one ever wins a war. Death and destruction impacts everyone. The costs are monumental. Recovery is near impossible. Like Italy, Germany was financially crippled in World War I. And in the minds of combatants, the war never ends. Resentments marinate, and stone cold hate contaminates the society for both the victor and for the vanquished. I've selected these videos to tell the story as best as I think it can be told. I take different clips. If you look at the term paper that I sent out to you, you'll see that I've inserted in the text where the videos would correlate with the text. And, certainly would encourage you to look at them more in depth. In the bibliography, I have multiple videos that you can go to. There's a lot of really good material out there today. So I encourage you to do that.
In 1930, Germany is a liberal democracy. With elections, parliament, and the rule of law. Just 4 years later, freedom of speech is over. Most of the political opposition is in jail, and the government is in the hands of murderers. This is the story of how democracy died. To piece together how it happened, historians and experts have examined those 4 years, each from a different individual perspective.
You cajole, you influence, you manipulate.
They'll take us inside the minds of those that fought fascism.
They've realised that these people are after your head. They want to annihilate you from existence altogether.
And the Nazis themselves.
Hitler genuinely believed that he would create an racially pure Germany where the Aryan race would reign supreme.
The moments when history hung in the balance and the world's worst atrocities could have been prevented.
Mass murder was no problem for me. But it was important to be socially acceptable. Do people care about the truth?
There's a black hole in the heart of Europe. Germany, a once great nation, is on its knees. The people, having endured years of economic hardship, are looking for change. But no one knows what kind of change they will choose.
Another milestone is marked in Germany's political history.
The 1930 general election should have brought clarity, but it didn't. It's a total mess. The vote split between 14 different parties. The Communists, the Social Democrats. The Centre Party is just about able to put together a moderate coalition government, but it's a weak one. The only party who are happy, who make substantial gains, are the Nazis. Just a few years ago, the Nazis were violent revolutionaries. But their revolution failed. And Hitler was sent to prison.
Guess it's important for me to note that this isn't a film of January 6th, but it's kind of similar. It's an Hitler cannot accept the unacceptable. He vows to fight against the German government that stabbed him and his fellow List regiment comrades in the back. The rich and the powerful provide him with support, and actually they fund him for like the next decade. Let me get this one lined up here. And so when Hitler is freed from jail, he has a new plan to participate in the government structure, thereby gaining power and support of the population. General Schleicher, persuades the president, Hindenburg, who defeated Hitler in the presidential election, to meet with Hitler with the hope that they can form a coalition government on the right while icing out the left. Mind you, people are primed for wanting a change. They've been through World War I. They are gutted. They are badly beaten up. Obviously, they want to change. They don't want to have this continuing. The question is, what change? But the Russians, they wanted change too, and they got it with Lenin. You don't know what you're going to get. So again, it's we want change, but we're really not sure what. And often the change that comes is simply the same thing in a different outfit.
It has been noted by many people that Schleicher, schleichen in German, means to sneak, to creep. So in English, he would be the creeper or the sneaker, which strangely is a very accurate denomination for what he did and for what he was. If you see politics as a game, as Schleicher did, he is a master in the play of power. Well, Schleicher's profession is to observe everybody. And the Nazis appear like the Deus ex machina or like Jack in the Box as something which was not foreseen and saying, we offer you this, here we are. And we offer you a part of the German working class on a silver plate. The Nazis have a kind of street cred. And Schleicher is cynical enough. And he thinks to be clever enough to say, this is a horse that we are going to ride.
Schleicher wants to use the Nazis to solve a big problem. The threat posed to the aristocratic elite from the increasingly powerful forces of the left. So Schleicher cooks up a plan. He wants to replace the current chancellor, supported by a moderate coalition, with his own right-wing choice. But to do this, he needs two things: the backing of the Nazis in the Reichstag and the support of Germany's head of state. The man who has the power to hire and fire a chancellor. So Schleicher has to persuade.
And so Hitler joins in this dance, but it doesn't go very well because Hitler wants the power not to be a junior partner. And so he's got the stormtroopers on the streets that are his muscle. And mind you, you see, the allure of muscle is that this may be our route to power. But it's mindless. The muscle power, that's all it is. And to have more deep thinking about where you're going just doesn't emerge. And so you often see these strong men governments ultimately fail. May take 30 years, but they don't have an ongoing sustainable government. So there's a problem. The stormtroopers continue doing what they're doing, perpetrating violence against anti-Hitler forces. Hitler attempts to distance himself from the stormtroopers, but a German lawyer decides to take Hitler to court.
Hans Litten is anxious. He saw the rise of what he believes is going to be a very dangerous movement. Litten is a lawyer who is powered by the idea that law is important. He doesn't see law as just a set of rules. He sees it as being the thing that will make the difference in creating a better society, a foundation, a rock on which it can be built. He is talking about human rights at a time when very few people did. And he takes on his cases as though life depended on it.
Litten sees what the stormtroopers are doing on the streets. When they attack a nightclub full of communists, dozens are injured and 4 stormtroopers are charged. Litten wants to join the dots back to the Nazi party itself.
Hitler is saying he believes in law. He believes in a rules-based society. He would never himself speak of violence and using violence. But Hans Litten, he understood what fascism was about. He understood what Nazism was about. And so he thinks, how do we make this case of use in a bigger struggle? And he decides that a summons should be issued to get Hitler before the court. when Hitler enters the court, the stormtroopers who are on trial stand up in the dock and raise their hands in the Hitler salute, and they show their dedication to that leader. Hitler is absolutely in control. Hitler went there prepared to say something very well rehearsed, and says that he had no knowledge at all of what the stormtroopers would do. This was a rogue group. How often have we heard great leaders saying that somehow this was an out of control group and that this has nothing to do with them? And Lytton slowly but surely starts to unpick that. Hitler is cross-examined for 3 hours. Who are the stormtroopers? What is expected of? Tell me the truth.
As Hitler continues to deny stormtrooper violence as official Nazi policy, Lytton produces a pamphlet. It's a quick guide to Nazi ideology for new stormtrooper recruits. In it, there's a line that says that the Nazis can't come to power by democratic means.
Lytton plays his trump card and he presents it to Hitler. Look at this. You're telling us you're a Democrat, that you're running a Democratic Party? Look what your pamphlets say. It must have been so exhilarating. You know, there's nothing more satisfying than a good cross-examination if you're a lawyer. And then he gets angry. From this position of calm leadership, he becomes the rather frothing man that we knew he was capable of being. By keeping at it, slowly and patiently, he wore down the veneer. And although, you know, it was not about, you know, a witness saying, I'm guilty, you just know that someone has been reduced in size. And I think Hitler was.
A reporter secretly takes this photograph.
The sense you have in looking at the photograph, Hitler knows that his performance was not good. That Lytton had exposed to the public what this man was really like.
Hans Lytton was exactly the sort of man who Hitler rather despised. A Jewish lawyer, clever man, an intellectual. They were traitors. They were tools of a world Jewish conspiracy. Vermin. They were less than nothing.
And so it was a great victory for Lytton. But by God, had he made an enemy in the Führer.
On the night of the Reichstag fire, Lytton is arrested. He spends the next 5 years in concentration camps, and he ultimately commits suicide. Schleicher continues campaigning for Hitler. The people of power are too frightened of communist. To do so, he must sideline Franz Papen.
On election day 1932, all the key players cast their vote. Hitler, von Papen, and President Hindenburg.
Hitler realizes that if he tells a very simple message, it doesn't matter if they're true or not. The point is that you have to keep repeating them, keep hammering them in. make Germany great again, restore the economy. They are empty slogans, but they're carrying a message that, although vague, is very powerful.
The result sends shockwaves through Germany. The Nazis' vote has gone from 18 to 37%. Now, with the largest party in the Reichstag, suddenly Hitler is too big for even Schleicher to control.
So Hitler thinks now's the time to strike.
Now Hitler makes his big move and demands to be Chancellor.
Schleicher is worried. Hitler is simply not playing by the rules that Schleicher is foreseen.
Hitler was a gambler. As he said, I always go broke. And the more he believed in himself, the more he was encouraged by his media followers to believe in himself, the more he was disinclined to compromise.
Talking to Hitler, which at the beginning was like talking to a servant, now becomes talking to someone who comes with his own claims. So Schleicher's position starts to weaken and things start to become shaky and slippery.
So Schleicher responds with an even bigger move. He knows that in the German constitution, there is a clause that says the president can suspend parliament and rule by presidential decree. Schleicher and Papen now persuade Hindenburg to pull that lever and exercise his emergency powers.
Hindenburg is rather horrified by the idea of Hitler as Chancellor. That jumped up, little corporal from somewhere in Austria.
So Chancellor Papen heads to the Reichstag with the authority of the president to suspend parliament. He just has to get the speaker's attention and then dissolve the Reichstag.
That is all he needs to do in here.
But there's a new speaker who has just been appointed.
Goering is very keen to be Hitler's fixer because it makes him an important political figure. But to be Hitler's fixer, you've got in the end to deliver what Hitler wants.
And in a moment captured in this photograph, when Papen tries to get the speaker's attention to dissolve the Reichstag, Goering looks the other way and instead calls a vote of no confidence in Papen's government.
Goering looks at them, reads them, laughs and says, sorry, your government's finished.
The fall of Chancellor Papen coincides with yet another general election. And with the German economy picking up, the Nazi vote falls back. It looks like Hitler got close to being Chancellor, but not close enough. And years of constant campaigning has left the Nazi Party close to bankruptcy.
By late 1932, Goering clearly feels the Nazi Party is facing something of a crisis. He knows that this is a leader who is stubbornly committed to becoming Chancellor or nothing. And for Goering, I think that's it's a difficult circle to square. And I think there are moments when Goering is really thinking, how am I going to do this? Is Hitler's stubbornness going to make the party fall apart?
Hitler has always refused to join any coalition unless he is Chancellor. But many in the Nazi Party are getting impatient and want a slice of power. Schleicher sees this and offers rebel Nazis a part in his government, weakening Hitler further.
So at this moment, it seems that this is successful. He feels that he starts having all the tools in his hand to open the doors to the Nazi castle and to get into it, or to get, actually he tries to steal from Hitler. He tries to get a part of the support that Hitler has from the German people.
By the end of 1932, Hitler was at his wit's end as to what to do. He didn't seem to be able to get any more votes. The Nazis began to run out of money. People began to desert them. The Nazi Party is weak, it's declining, so there's a general feeling of crisis.
It should have been the beginning of the end for the Nazi Party. With his chances of power slipping away, Hitler makes a clandestine journey. In a desperate last throw of the dice,
he definitely looks down on Hitler. Hitler is another sort of animal as far as he's concerned. Papen is looking at Hitler to see if this man can be useful in getting his revenge against Schleicher.
Papen offers Hitler a deal to join forces using Hitler's parliamentary strength and Papen's friendship with President Hindenburg to find a way to power.
He sees Hitler as his means of getting back into power. Hitler does not represent to him the ideal form of government. Franz von Papen finds the ideal form of government Franz von Papen.
For the first time in his political career, Hitler makes a compromise. An agreement is made that the Nazis and Papen will form a coalition government.
The compromise wasn't really in his repertoire. It was either total victory or total defeat. But I think that he was convinced that the von Papen deal would bring the legitimacy with which he could then take over power.
Between Papen and Hitler, at least one thing is agreed: Schleicher must go.
This famous meeting, which is supposed to be a secret meeting, but it's not that secret because it leaks out immediately and Schleicher has knowledge of it. And strangely, he reacts in a manner where he doesn't really feel threatened by it. And it seems that he even thinks, oh, this is little Franz doing something for me, trying to negotiate with the Nazis to bring Nazi support to my government. He does not yet understand to what extent Papen has turned against him.
We go back to this time over and over and again because it informs our current world. It informs our current world on a number of planes, but particularly it is a warning to us to prevent things like this from happening again. And we ask, why wasn't it that there were no people around who could actually prevent this terrible descent?
Here we are in the 30s, violence is taking place, society is becoming divided. Do people see what's really happening?
The story of geopolitics between 1930 and 1933 is the story of the decline and fall of a democracy. And that's why we're so fascinated, because we know what happened afterwards. Jones at the time didn't know what was going to happen. But we know now, looking back, what a terrible turning point it was. And of course, democracy is under challenge and under threat in many countries at the moment. We're looking for parallels. That period does have lessons for us if we want to preserve and defend democracy in our own day.
German resistance is crumbling, and we're in a situation today where anything may happen. We take you to San Francisco, William L. Shirer reporting. So Hitler is dead and destroyed like his country that he tried to make the master of the world and ended only by destroying. I must say that in a sense, in a very deep sense, of course, this is a day that I have been waiting for many years. Suddenly we got the word, the surrender terms of the United Nations. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the Second World War. That is the word we have just received from the White House in Washington, and I didn't expect to hear a celebration here in our newsroom in New York. But you could hear.
Berlin had capitulated. Their nose and highly places, the German generals emerged, like beasts buried out of their lairs. Goering gave himself up. Goebbels preferred to shoot himself. Now the major war criminals were in the hands of justice. It was decided to try them in Nuremberg. Nuremberg, where the Nazis ran rampant. Nuremberg, from which the demented Hitler hurled his threats to the world. Nuremberg now lies in ruin and ashes. Here they were brought to answer for their crimes, these warmongers and conspirers against nations. These butchers of whole people and plunderers of whole states. These child murderers and slave traders. These 20th century honeys. For all this, we must now answer. The hour of reckoning has come. Don't hide your face, Goering. The world knows you, and the world curses you.
I have two more clips, but we're got 15 minutes left, so I'm gonna stop it there and open up for questions, discussion, comments. And I hope you picked up on the reference to making Germany great again, just as Mussolini was going to make Italy great again. I guess we use the raise the hand function, right, George?
Still digesting a lot of stuff.
Ready to go. Eileen has something. Eileen, can you unmute and start your video maybe?
Well, I can't construct video, no word. I just wanted to say, when we were in Nuremberg, you and I, Lauren, a few years ago, and we could see the movies of Hitler speaking there, because that's where he started, Nuremberg, and underneath they would have, what he was saying in English, and it sounds so very much like what is being said in America today. And that's several years ago, and I can remember feeling sick. And also when we're there, they are bringing all the German children there and school-age kids to try and teach them what they did and how bad it was. And we have a few things that were bad, and we should teach our children too. That's all I can say.
I agree. Yeah. One of the things I think is important to know is that when we look at the films of Hitler's speeches and that kind of stuff, and you hear the crowd respond as it does, much of that may be dubbed audio. Several historians have gone into it to try to show that it was much doctored. So just as we're having AI generated fake stories today, they were doing something similar then. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Oh, all I can do is sigh because of so many parallels. And how it all seems to be happening, and very quickly, just like it did in Germany, where 1936-7 in Germany. I don't have any solutions, and I know all I can do is write postcards to try and encourage voting, and I can't get out and march much anymore, but I want my voice to be heard anyway, at least on postcards. Sorry, I don't have any other comment. I was just gonna whine a little bit.
I understand, and let me say, one of the things is that we, in this class, and many times when we're looking at history, we do look in retrospect and see how all the pieces came together and how it evolved. The problem that I see in contemporary affairs is that there'll be an event and the decision makers, the people in power, will come together and make decisions at the exclusion of any broader context. And whenever that is introduced, when someone says, wait a minute, before we go and attack in Kuwait to remove Saddam Hussein, let's think it through. What's going to happen out of this? Is there another way to do it? Mind you, Saddam Hussein had called, I know this sounds like a different topic, but it's the same thing. Saddam Hussein, before he attacked Kuwait, called in the American ambassador. And he said, I'm having hostilities with Kuwait. How will America respond if I become engaged in open warfare with Kuwait? The ambassador said the policy at the time was that we were not going to get involved in border disputes. So that gave Saddam a green light. Now, when you see Saddam is amassing troops along the border, it's time for people to say, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? What did our ambassador say? Well, let's pull that back. Let's try to say, wait a minute, Saddam, if you do this, we're going to be placed in a position where we have to come in and defend them. It might have fended off that whole episode. And mind you, what came out of that whole episode? The Taliban, Osama bin Laden, ISIS, all of them came out of that. The fall of the Soviet Union was a part of that. And it's I have to say, you can't project all that's going to happen, but in a generalized form, you can talk about the consequences and what it's going to unleash. Go ahead, Lauren.
So I know, I don't think I've been, maybe I didn't pay close enough attention or something, but I don't really understand what was the thing that finally really unraveled Hitler. Like he was amassing so much support, and it was so pervasive, and of course he was doing terrible things, but there was something that finally unraveled him, and I don't know, I can't really get what that was.
Are you meaning at the end of the war that he kills himself and all of that?
Yeah.
Okay. What's happened is Germany is being crushed, and the Russians are bearing down on Berlin. Eisenhower was bearing down on Berlin. It was over. The war was over. German generals knew in 1942 they had lost the war. That's when they started thinking, we're going to have to kill them. So, but what happens is they keep the war going. And the Nazis, under Hitler, the stormtroopers and all of them, they are going to continue enforcing the rigid laws that you can't speak against the Führer, that you cannot retreat. As the Russians are barreling down, people in those towns want to run. But if they try to run, the Nazis lock them up and hold trials to put them on to be executed. So Hitler is, mind you, in my view, he is a psychologically broken person by the time he's a teenager. So he has in his head, we were stabbed in the back and we were still winning the war. He thinks he's still winning the war until he's got Russians knocking on his door. The Americans could have probably taken Berlin first, but it's thought that Eisenhower felt Berlin was a prize that Zhukov deserved because so many Russians had died fighting Hitler. And so the Russians are barreling in. It's he finally has, I mean, the days before, he is telling his generals they're going to continue the fight. And then,
so it's the destruction of the entire country that is
right.
Probably, boy,
right.
I hope we don't have to get to that point.
Finally says, I don't want to be captured by them because they will, carve up my body and do all kinds of things. So he then kills himself and takes his girlfriend with him.
Never mind what he did to millions of other people. But okay.
And goes with him his propaganda, Fox News executive. He kills himself along with his wife and his children.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, if anyone is looking for current day analysis of psychological break, I would recommend Mary Trump's first book about her uncle, Too Much and Never Enough, because it really explains the same kind of thing that you're talking about, that he had such a bad upbringing that he's really broken from then on.
Yeah, no, it's a good her book is a very good analysis. Yeah. Susan.
Yeah, in Germany, in German democracy, the court system, when did they become so weak to look the other way and not follow the, prevent or even just acquiesce the rule of law? When did that, I mean, I sort of got that impression, but I still didn't see if there was, like, we have a Supreme Court. When did that happen and where? And that gave the power to this rise. And I would have to say that in hearing this story, in seeing the parallels, it's so scary because we could replace Nazi with MAGA.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, well, first, what you have the Reichstag fire, which presumably was allegedly was perpetrated by the stormtroopers. So that became the reason. That is, now it's the predicate for determining martial law. And Hitler then declares himself the Führer. And it's no longer, we're suspending democracy until we can restore order. So what he sees power, but what he says is, when we have everything has calmed down and we're back to normal, we're going back to a democracy.
Okay. I did pick it up correctly then, but I just, I thought, when did that turn really happen? Yeah.
And mind you, I mean, today we're now getting troops in place so that you can declare an insurrection act. And so we're kind of heading in a very similar trajectory.
And some press is talking about this. I don't know if the big press is talking about it, but a lot of people that I'm reading are talking about this.
Well, and also what happens when the Nazis take power, and they've now taken over everything, they attack their Justice Department and get rid of all of the people who believed in the rule of law. And one of the things that becomes a conflict is that the drafting of the Nuremberg laws are the things that are going to be used to justify killing Jewish people. And the career prosecutors, Justice Department people, they argue back, and they say, well, we can't do that. There's no precedent in our law that says we can do that kind of thing. And so the Nazi lawyers then bring the laws from America, the Jim Crow laws from America. Here is the precedent of what it is we want to do. And we're not as harsh as the Americans were. So you see, the rule of law, you have to get rid of that if you're going to have dictatorial power.
Right. Thank you.
Hi, Bob.
Oh, so it seems like there were a few spots before Hitler actually came into power that he could have been stopped. And so I'm curious if there are other things outside of Hitler, other people that were trying to be dictators that were stopped. And if there's any parallels in that way.
Oh, that is a really good question. And I think I could make a case that England, and I'm talking World War II now, end of World War I. England is on the precipice of following the Russian Revolution. And forces come together I mean, the ultra wealthy do not want a communist government, but they also recognize that the antipathy that has developed amongst the British people against the government, because it was, you know, we're economically destitute. You got us into this war. It was a brutal, we lost so many people. We want to change. And what I can't remember who it was. I'm sorry, it's escaping me now, but I know I have it on a video that I showed in a class about World Wars I and II. Hopefully, I'll find it because I want to repeat that class. But what happens is they come forth and they say, "Look, we're going to do things differently," and they present a plan, which is more of that. We're going to get you jobs. We're going to get you fed. We're going to get you housing. You know, let's stick by this. The republic that we have with the monarchy. Let's give us a chance. And they do. Same in France, because France, they had troops coming home, rebelling in the towns when they come back, saying, we're going to overthrow this government. And again, they come forth and they say, it's going to be a kinder and gentler government than you had before. Now, mind you, when we get to the end of World War II, the British soldiers, they remember World War I, and they're doubly pissed. And they're about, you could see Churchill would have been the one to be the Hitler of England. But what do? They vote him out and bring in Clement Attlee. And Clement Attlee creates the huge social network that brings England out of World War II, and they survive and they rebuild and they do well. And then, you know, Thatcher comes along, and what does she do? I'm going to crush. We shouldn't be doing that. Well, for 30 years, it kept England at bay, and the people supported it and all of that, and they recovered from the war. And now Margaret's going to come along and crush it. And in that process, we got punk rock music. I'm a punk rocker. It's where it comes from. You know, I'm sorry, that's a long-winded answer to your question, but I think it's fascinating to see how these things play out. Who did what differently than what the other people did, and how did that happen? A book I would recommend that, and I probably have said this before, I'm sure I have, is The Post-War by Tony Judt. Because when you get to the post-World War II, Tony Judt says the people who should have been in the catbird seat to seize power were the communists, because they were the alternative to all that went before. So you think, well, okay, all these other guys have been proven wrong. Let's go to them. But it doesn't happen. It's the social democrats. It's the people who say, look, we don't want communism, but we want a bigger safety net. We want something that, you know, and there's a huge revolution that takes place throughout Europe. It becomes the social net is very big. But here's the thing. Even in Italy, abortion becomes legal. Because women were like, we're not going with that crap any longer. People are demanding, we're not going to do that anymore. So it's just and you can see how it plays out in many countries along the way. So yeah, there are alternative approaches that we don't hear a lot about because the brutality, the horror is what kind of consumes us. And I get a lot involved in how they emerged, but the alternative is one that can be considered and can result in much less
Better outcomes.
and bloodshed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. There's hope.
There is hope. There is hope. And it's kind of, look, I can give a dissertation about how terrible things are today and how we're going to hell in a handbasket. And we might. We might. But remember, we still, you still have the ability to protest. And it's like you still have that chance to carry that sign. When the day comes that we have an insurrection act, you can't. I mean, you can go out with the sign, but then you're going to get a bat over your head. And, and that's just, so while you still can do something, it's important to take advantage of it.
Okay, any more comments?
Me?
Okay, I encourage you to look at some of those other videos. I took clips of those different ones, but I have multiple documentaries that kind of tell a very similar story a little bit differently, some different aspects. I kept it coming from two sources here because much of it is the same, but there's really some very rich work that's out there that the PBS series on Hitler and the Nazis, I think, is excellent. There's a whole bunch like that, so I encourage you to take a look.
Ralph.
Oh, hey, Ralph.
I finally found the raise hand button. It's so okay. I gotta tell you, the way Zoom puts that is just remarkably stupid. I kept hitting react. I'm like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It's ridiculous. But
so the simplest way is hit Control Y.
Well, I had my hand up like this and y'all didn't see it.
I didn't see you.
And then I'm thinking, yeah, but I got this little tiny square out there. That's all they're seeing. So no, nobody is seeing that. I'm glad I found it. I just wanted to offer a couple things. I have been married to Suzanne from Sweden for 40 years. And from talking with her in the past, I know that Sweden also avoided the takeover by the socialists or the communists. Really, the communists and the right-wingers were not able to take over Sweden. And I believe this happened around the time of World War I. And it was much as you described, Sal. It was the Downton Abbey set knew that something had to give. And by however they managed it, Sweden managed to avoid that. And then after the Second World War, by then, they were thoroughly convinced in the value of their model of social democracy and also neutrality. The two were very mixed together. And so I thought that was an interesting parallel to what you were describing. But the main comment I wanted to make was that I have trouble in the current situation understanding my conservative friends because we can't talk politics anymore. Those days are gone. And I'm sad to say that most of them, almost all, have completely sold out to this man. And conservatism, I grew up in the South. I can talk about that. My father was part of the federal judicial system. He was an assistant district attorney. I can talk about that. I understand the conservative argument. What I cannot understand or make peace with is how my friends who are conservative do not see and do not recognize or respond to this amassing of unchecked, unlimited, absolute dictatorial power that this man wants. How in God's name do they not see it? I can't figure it out. I wrote a list here. He wants to redistrict, and he tells you right out front, we're just going to get more repubs. That's what we want. He wants to go after all of his enemies. He wants to rename sports teams. He wants everything. Entire groups are being labeled as traitors, criminals, terrorists, and he gets away with it. And protesters, wow, they're all Antifa. I've got relatives who think that Antifa is like some sort of highly organized, dangerous leftist mobs of killers. You can't talk to them. You cannot describe what Antifa really is because they won't believe it. They're being fed nonsense. So the slogans, make America great, make Germany great. Oh my God. I can't make peace with people who believed in limited government power. And I'm kind of a moderate. I've worked in government. I've seen us do bad things. It has to be limited. Government power, my father said, the assistant district attorney, was uniquely susceptible to misuse and criminal enterprises, uniquely susceptible, which is why you want the best people in government, not the people who are sold out. You want people with integrity precisely because the power is so great. And we are really seeing what happens if you put sycophants and people who have sold out to one man. It's incredible. That part is hard for me to make peace with because I don't see how they miss it. It's all there, from the slogans to the massive amassing of power. What might save us this time is the same media that makes my cousin think that Trump is right about everything is informing the rest of us in other ways from different sources how to fight it, that we must fight it, that we shouldn't believe it, that everything they're pushing is nonsense. So yeah, there's a few random thoughts there.
Okay.
Well, Ralph, I appreciate the comment. I think that is certainly an area that I've studied over time, and it's interesting to me that you can take people in post-war Germany and conduct interviews with them to say, why did you support that? And so you get more depth into what was going on there. I did a class on the brain and on the psychology of biases and all of that. Because to understand when people subscribe to something that you would find unsubscribable, it's a lot of what are the biases in their mind. They may not even know that that's what's playing out, that there's so much about our brain that is taking place that we're not even cognizant
Maybe
of.
tomorrow is better.
And there's
Go get an allergy shot this afternoon at some point.
someone's mic is open, who I think doesn't want it open. Careful if you're going to say bad things about me, but make sure the mic is off. Although I've probably heard it before. Anyway, that it's like one of the people in clips in the class. The scientist says, we think we decide things based on our choices. No. It's based on stuff that's been baked in over time, and we may not even understand it. And I'm sympathetic to that. I mean, mind you, as you know, I'm a post-traumatic stress disorder person. I did not know that I had any problem for, I don't know, close to 30 years. Totally unaware of it. Now, when I get into what they're doing is
Yes.
wanting to. I just want to hear if they're talking about is to get in touch with the stuff that's in the back of your brain that's playing out. I could call it coordinates. I could be calling. I would have coordinates ringing in my head, but I didn't know it. It's when you become cognizant and you start delving into that you start realizing, well, so for a lot of people, let's just take you grew up in Alabama, but you grew up in a well-educated house. Your father was a judge. I mean, so you're exposed to ideas that many people in Alabama would not be exposed to. And let's look at the narrative about Black people that was inculcated in everyone in the South. It's not because they're evil people. It's what they've been fed for so long. And I'm talking from childhood. So the things that can get into a child's head early on, that, it's implanted, but they're not even aware. So what you had is the conservative movement conservatives. This is the group that I've talked about that operates underground, that knew we have to operate by stealth. They had, a game plan, and they used social psychologists, communications experts, and others. How do we get this idea in their head without them knowing? And so they got those ideas in their head. Mind you, why can't I go out and buy a Porsche? Well, it's because all my money is going to people who don't deserve it. If I had the money that they're giving away to them, I could go buy a Porsche and get a gold chain around my neck and go and no, but you understand what I'm saying is that you have to understand that's what you're dealing with. And it's sad, really, when Trump comes along, all that work that was done by the movement conservatives to fertilize that ground, and they thought they could keep doing it by stealth, by disguise, by dog whistle. Trump comes along and there's no dog whistle. He just shouts it out. And so for all of those people who, might have been, okay, I'll vote for this guy or that guy because of guns or because of abortion or whatever. And I know that all of them want to take money away from the people we're giving it away to. So I can pick out all of it. Well, what makes Trump stand out from all the 16 others that were on the stage? He came down the escalator screaming the N-word. And that was the end of the debate. That was it. It was over. Mind you, he tried to run for office before, and he got nowhere. He got somewhere in 15 because he didn't disguise his virulent racism and hate and bigotry. So, I think you have to take that into account. Again, I'm sorry it's a long-winded answer, but it's an important question. I wonder if Gail may have dropped off. She had her hand up for a little bit.
There's put a couple of comments about our power is to vote, and we have the commission vote coming up next week to remind everyone. Sal?
Yes.
Laid it out too clearly today, I think.
Yeah. Well, I hope I do hope that you're getting something valuable through this, not just a diatribe about, political views, but that I hope you can. I think it is important to look in retrospect at the autocrats, to look at their characteristics and how it happened, because um, we're facing a dire time, and this is really to set the stage for a class in January on Trump and money laundering, assuming that we don't have the Insurrection Act before then and Sue gets closed down. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, everyone. Thank you for hanging in there with me.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's good. Anything else from anybody? Okay. Well, please be safe. We'll talk soon. Oh, we don't have class next week, remember. We're we're off. So
2 weeks.
enjoy your vacation. How many of you are going down to what is that? The Walton Beach or whatever. Going on your spring break, winter break, fall break. I'm gonna take a short vacation to Forest Park. It's one of my favorite vacation spots. If you haven't been there, go take a drive through Forest Park. It's down by the airport. Okay. Well, be safe, everyone. Thank you for coming.